and welcome back to the video. Today we're going to be talking about some short-term weather. We have a storm system that's coming up for Sunday, which could bring some snow to most areas of the Northeast. And then Tuesday we could be dealing with some rain. And then in the longer term, we're also going to be looking at what the pattern looks like throughout the rest of December and also for January, because there are some hints at potential for a maybe more favorable pattern in early January. But we'll be talking about that at the end of the video. So let's start off just looking at water vapor loop. This tells us basically moisture in the atmosphere. And as you can see, there's two big things you might look at right away. On the left side near California and Mexico, you see this is sort of a cut off trough. So it's not really part of the jet stream. It's not moving from west to east like usual. But the more interesting thing, especially for the Northeast, is the sort of dark area on the right. And that is the trough that is currently bringing down very cold air from Canada. And that's what we're currently dealing with cold temperatures across the Northeast. You can see here we have low 30s along the coast, mid 20s in the interior, and then in the teens, and probably by tonight closing in on negative numbers in the higher elevations, especially north in the Adirondacks, Vermont, New Hampshire. Sort of been the name of the game, cold wind chills. We've had gusty winds due to a cold front moving through. This will continue through tonight. The winds will start to subside as the pressure gradient becomes less drastic. So the wind chills might not be as biting, but we will certainly have low temperatures throughout the night, especially in those higher elevations. Then what we've been currently dealing with, looking at radar for the Northeast, as you can see, as the cold air was moving through, the really warm lakes are allowing for a lot of rising air and therefore lake effect snow bands, which is what we call convective snow. As you can see, just going about southeast of every single lake, you can see these bands of snow, and even on the Finger Lakes in New York. So this has been going on for today. You might have seen some snow accumulations, maybe some decent accumulations, closing in on 3 to 6 inches. Then as you can see, as we come closer to what we're seeing now, still some lake effect snow, but now it's traveling more eastward. And as we can see, the National Weather Service has issued a winter storm warning up in upstate New York, and some winter weather advisories. This is if you're in the storm warning, it's up to, I believe it's 6 to 12 inches, and the advisories, we're looking closer down to 6 inches. This will continue on over the next day as the cold air remains, before we have a warm front later in the week that's going to allow for some alleviation and not as heavy snow. So we can look at the fronts. You can see that snow up in the Northeast. But what we see is this sort of weak low pressure system moving across Canada. As you can see, this sort of red line here, that is what we call warm front, and that is going to be bringing a little bit of warm, moist air, which will hit the land, and this will cause some precipitation to form for almost all of the Northeast in the form of light snow, maybe a little heavier in the mountainous areas. But closer to the coast, we're going to be dealing more with rain. So we can look at this on the HRRR. This is one of the shorter term models we use. It has a better resolution. As you can see, what we've been talking about, those lake effect bands. Then you can see Saturday evening going into Monday morning, you can see that snow come through, sort of these lighter blue colors signifying lighter snow. And then some rain maybe on the Capes, very coastal areas, because again, those waters haven't really cooled down. So areas closer to the coast will be a lot more mild in the term of temperatures. You can see that moves out by Sunday midday. And then we can look at also the NAM is another model we use just to see if it's agreeing, what it's thinking. And you can see the NAM brings more or less the same situation, maybe a little bit heavier on the snow, seeing some more moisture. But as you notice, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York City, and Long Island are really going to be missing out on most of the snow. Definitely, you cannot rule out any light snows, but really nothing in the sense of accumulations. We can see what the models are thinking in terms of accumulation by Sunday evening. See, we're working with under an inch for most of southern New England, according to the NAM, and then 4 to 6 inches in the higher elevations. And then those lake effects bands could, especially in upstate New York, could be producing significant amounts of snow, maybe in the range of 20 inches just east of that lake. Let's see what then the HRRR sort of agrees. It's not fully to the end of the storm yet, so it hasn't seen all that snow, especially when we're talking about Maine and New Hampshire. But as you can see, same idea, southern New England, just very light accumulations, and then mostly it's the lake effect snow that's really bringing those accumulations. The storm isn't going to be bringing any crazy snow or anything like that. Then in terms of temperatures tonight, we could be seeing into the single digits across Maine. Upper, like New Hampshire, we could be seeing single digits, and then teens throughout most of the other higher elevations, and 20s for lows basically across the entirety rest of the board. And then as we go into tomorrow, maybe some milder temperatures in southern New England, and then overnight lows not as drastic, sticking in the 20s, but then you can see Sunday, you can see that warm air moving north. I mean, you're seeing like 60s creeping in and into southern Pennsylvania, potentially even 60s in southern New Jersey, a much more mild and air mass coming through. And then taking a look at sort of longer range using the ECMWF ensembles, this crushes together a bunch of model runs to give us a more accurate picture, especially in the long run. So you can see we've got this below average temperatures. Then we're going to see a bit of warm, certainly not a torch by any means, but some warm. Tuesday to Wednesday of next week, and then right after that warm, confidence is increasing in cold across the entire eastern seaboard. I mean, down in Florida, we're seeing 10 to 15 degrees below normal. This is for Thursday to Friday of next week, and just across the entire area, we're just seeing 10 to 15 below normal. And after that moves out, this is getting a little more into the longer range, but sort of a signal of mild to slightly above average temperatures across the board. And then in terms of precipitation, we can look at the ECMWF again. So we can see this sort of clipper system moving through that I was talking about Sunday, some snow accumulations. And then Tuesday, we're not going to dive into the specifics. I'll have a video out probably Sunday for the specifics on this storm, but definitely a lot of rain in southern New England, maybe even some rain and some ice pushing into the higher elevations. And then after that, we could follow right after that. The ECMWF is looking right at another storm. This is, mind you, 120 hours out. This is next Wednesday to Thursday. So definitely some things for the models to work out here, but a strong signal across the board of some rain and some snow too, a combination. We're not really sure who's going to get hit by what yet. And then looking forward into the longer range, looking towards the end of December and into January. One of the things we look at when looking at patterns a month out is the MJO, which stands for the Madden-Julian Oscillation. We don't need to go into the specifics for this, but essentially what it is the tropics, basically from Africa all the way along the equator, just north of the equator, to over the Pacific Ocean. Depending on where the rising and the sinking air is, it gets assigned a phase of the MJO. The phases run 1 through 8. It's basically all you need to know, 1 through 8. And now typically, not always, but typically phases 7, 8, and 1 favor colder air in the northeast. This is because there's a lot of influence the tropics have a lot of influence over the weather for the rest of the world. As you can see, we've had cold and we're in phase 4. So that doesn't always hold true, but more than likely it does. So as we move throughout the rest of the month of December, getting to December 30th, some of our models are showing that we're going to be moving in, actually most of the models show we're going to be moving into phase 7, and then potentially phase 8 by early January. That's one of the things we can look at. Another thing we can look at, which I'm seeing, is in the end of December and early January. I'm showing you just one model run of the GFS here. For those of you who know, one model run a month out is completely useless, but the ECMWF and the GFS have been showing this for, I think, 6 days of extended model run. So it's certainly a signal to look out for. Not set in stone, but we're seeing this stratospheric warming event. So this is temperature really, really, really high, tens of kilometers above your head. But typically when we see this hugely above normal temperatures at that level across the Northeast, stratospheric warming is correlated and can cause Arctic air outbreaks, and we're seeing potentially a weakening of the jet stream, which also allows for a little more fluidity and for some cold air to come south. So as we move into early January, as you can see, we're dealing with some warmer, more mild air on the east. This is a long range temperature forecast. Then, as you can see, we're moving into early January, and you can see those blues start to get a little darker by the time the further out we go. As you can see, by mid-January, the ECMWF extended, and this is also a ensemble, yet a smaller ensemble, but still an ensemble, has been showing, I mean, for the past 3, 4, 5, 6, and probably more runs, has been showing cold air in the eastern U.S. So it's certainly something to watch for. Nothing set in stone, but something to watch for. Early January, we could maybe have early to mid January, we could have a favorable pattern, and hopefully a nice snowstorm after the holidays. God forbid any travel disruptions, but hopefully we'll have some nice snow to work with. Thank you guys for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. I'll have another video out Sunday with an update on Tuesday's storm. Stay safe out there.